from the University of Auckland, Dr. Anna Brooks joins us. Anna, good evening.
Good evening.
Long time no
Yeah,
speak.
yeah, it has been. It has been a while, hasn't it?
Well, that kind of seems like a good thing overall, because maybe it's been because this the dirty C word hasn't been involved in our lives as much. And I know that you're going to come from the position of it's still here and be careful, but for most of us as much. So maybe it's a good thing. I don't know. But we're being told about a fifth wave. Although, first of all, I have to ask you, because like I said in my text to you today, party time at the Brooks household, you're at an infectious diseases gig. Is that like scientist, party time, the infectious diseases gig?
No, there wasn't. It wasn't really a party central kind of
No.
gig. But the reason you don't hear about COVID is, that's no coincidence because the globe wants to forget COVID. It's not gone away. It's not
Yep.
going away.
Yep.
It's just here we are. The globe wants it to be gone. That's why you don't hear about it.
Uh, is this going to be with us forever? Is there a feeling in the scientific community that this is never going away, that it's now going to be in our society forevermore as a communicable disease or virus?
Yeah. Well, it's not showing any signs of disappearing, and it's one of our nastiest viruses.
Mm.
It's not just a cold, and it's certainly not just the flu, because it's got nothing to do with your primary acute infection. Because bearing in mind, a lot of viruses, this one included, you can be asymptomatically infected. So you could feel absolutely nothing and it's causing silent damage. So, it'll probably go down in history as one of the worst circulating viruses there is. And we're going to continue to learn more about it. But it's just mind-blowing where we are. So yes, I was at an infectious diseases summit, and some of the conversations I was having was, isn't it crazy? We went from pandemic virus to I've got all cold and flu symptoms. I'm at my doctor, everything. I'm so sick. The last thing you'll be tested for is COVID because it's not funded and you won't get a COVID test.
Really?
How are we here? Yes. How are we here? Like we're now let's pretend it doesn't exist literally. So the only way you get a COVID test is if you shove a stick up your nose. That's it. And for how much longer? What are we hearing at the moment? January-ish or early into next year that they're funded. But it is just mind-blowing that if you rock up to your doctor with all, horrifically sick, the last thing, well, not even the last thing, it's not even going to be tested. And that blows my mind because it is a serious virus. And surely you want to rule that out and not pass it on. So here we are. That's why we don't hear about, that's why we don't hear about this virus, is because it's now dismissed as being something that no one wants to talk about, including our medical profession. That I mean, and it might not. It's not necessarily them doing this. It's the fact that it's not a funded test, so it's not part of a national or our health system to be tested for this virus.
My doctors, I don't resonate with what you're saying from my experience, but I'm take your word that that's what's happening, because my doctors still, my doctors are got 4 or 5 doctors in their surgery, and they're still like, do you have cold or flu symptoms? If you do, we'll come out and meet you at the car. We'll take you to the room out the back.
Really?
That's what my doctors, my doctor's still doing that. Yeah. I was there a couple of weeks ago. And ironically, I've had, my 17-year-old had COVID for the second time a couple of weeks ago. Someone at her mum's house had COVID that week. People up the back have got COVID. So I saw 2 or 3 or 4 people getting it. And then about 3 days later, attention New Zealand, the 5th wave of COVID is coming. And I'm like, oh. And since then, in Dunedin, throughout the past 3 years, there has always been people at the supermarket with masks, the supermarket I go to. No, for the last 12, let's say 6 to 12 months, it's been the real elderly. You've seen them with masks on, and some of the cashiers, and fucking fair enough too. If you're coming in face to face with 1,000 people a day or whatever it is, good on you. I encourage it.
Yeah.
But I have noticed as well, it's not the majority, but it might have gone up from seeing a mask every second visit to, there's 5 or 6 masks in the supermarket. So some people are twigging onto it and kind of go, nah, I'm going to be a bit more careful now.
Well, I mean, some of it's just the absolute lost productivity. Like, it might kick your butt, right? And it does. And even if you're someone who's had it kicked your butt, you could still have been wiped out for a month. Like, who wants to be wiped out for a month? Or even, well, as we're hearing more and more, people don't have sick leave left. So do you want to be sick? Like you said in airports, people are in masks because you're going on holiday. Do you want to land in Hawaii with COVID and have your butt kicked by COVID? You know what I mean? Like, it's starting to creep back in a good way, that, the awareness, because what we're concerned about is the complacency that because we've done so well and because we don't get giant upticks, and we haven't, and we can't forget that that's a good thing. We haven't had these giant upticks, but the rest of the world still sees these really giant upticks. And so are we just 5 waves behind? Are we just going to catch up later? So, and that's the thing. And so, like, we are hearing these outbreaks happen. I knew of an event where, the hit rate at an event was pretty high, like everyone got it, that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's not going away, and we've got a whole ton of different variants circulating. We don't have a testing system. We don't really know what's out there unless it's getting, sequenced because someone's in a hospital.
So do we not know if this 5th wave is Omicron, mostly Omicron based or anything like that? Do we just not know what it is?
Well, it's all Omicron,
So it's still all Omicron. That's still all, like, that's the mother. As you look, when you're growing plants, my partner does this. It's like, that's the mother plant and these are the offshoots. Yeah. Does that mean that the quote unquote new vaccine, whatever they call it, the bivalent, I don't know what the word is that something that's still, oh my gosh, what have I said? Something that's upset you? I was going to say, is that better protected than these? Do we know anything about the vaccine and effectiveness?
I sighed because we don't have updated vaccines. So, like, that's frustrating. So, like, even, people ask me for advice about getting the vaccine right, and I'm like, okay, what's coming through? And I heard that Novavax with XBB's coming in December. I'm like, okay. And so it's still very important for people who are vulnerable, right? Absolutely. And so I thought, well, if XBB, like, if Novavax is not here, let's see what the Pfizer vaccine, there's a bivalent. And then I went, oh my God, we're still back in 2022. The vaccine we have currently is still for BA.45.
So it's not the Omicron one we were promised at the start of this year.
No, it's not here yet. So, the message is still, if you're vulnerable and want protecting, it's better to get it than not. But, if you're in the camp of, I'd rather be, long-term protected with something that's actually going to protect against this current variant or soup of variants, then, we'd like to see the new ones come through. So, and in fact, it's gone from what we were hearing is termed bivalent. Bivalent is what they were calling, you still had the original variant against the original variant plus BA.45. I can't remember if it was 4 and 5 or whatever, that one. And so the newer ones are XBB. But it was soon shown that we don't need to keep boosting against a variant that literally doesn't exist anymore. It wastes immune energy. It wastes immune resources. So, and the literature's already published on this. So we're literally waiting to get the new vaccines. But it's not surprising because the public don't want vaccines. Like, nobody cares anymore, right? So it's not surprising that companies producing vaccines are like, well, do you even, what's the point? If no one is bothering anymore, what do we do with this? But certainly it's still important for vulnerable, because what we're likely to see, and we are already seeing, is, some people are getting hit every time they're exposed. They're vulnerable. And some people might get it once and never get it again, symptomatically, because we know that you can get it and carry it. But, we don't really know what's ahead of us. And so the most updated vaccines should be available. And I'm sure there's like what we would like to see is a vaccine that sterilizes, like so a nasal or an oral vaccine that shuts that thing down, and that would be the end of COVID. So, who knows if that's likely in the future, but where we are, like as you said, is this with us forever? It's with us forever until we have a strategy that can shut it down. But it's unlikely that it's going to get completely shut down unless we get some form of strategy that literally zaps it while up your nostrils.
Nick has a question that we can throw in here as well. Thanks for the super chat, Nick. Why aren't we rolling out updates like the annual flu vaccine as Pfizer or whoever is still making them? I guess that's like when you get your flu vaccine, that's for the last year's flus, isn't it? So you're protected from that, but not for new strains. I mean, I'm a little bit surprised. I mean, that we follow this quite closely, but I guess over the last 6 months, we've kind of dropped the ball a bit. I was thinking I haven't got a booster. I haven't had a vaccine for a year, and I got COVID this time last year. I had it just before Christmas, and I was thinking, I might go back and get a booster because the new booster's got the protection from Omicron. But if you're saying no, it doesn't, then the booster that's there at the moment is pretty much to keep people out of hospital. That's kind of what they said by the end.
Yeah, that's a good assumption. Yeah, we don't have the XBB, like the most updated vaccines are not here yet. So yes, you're absolutely right. It still keeps you out of hospital if you're in that vulnerable category, because a boost is still better than not being boosted. But at the same time, if you can protect yourself and wait, then we would like to see the updated ones. And again, it's still probably going to be mostly geared towards the vulnerable, because most people don't care anymore, but they should still be on the table. So whether it's going to become an updated like the flu vaccine, we don't seem to be fast enough.
Yeah.
So are we going to be, I mean, if we're going to keep annual ones, we need to actually be up with, when they're relevant, because the most current one is at least a year old. That it was basically the August, September wave which was BA.45 last year. And here we are, that's what we're getting boosted against. It's like ship sailed. We need the new variant vaccines. And because, they're constantly changing, and so is the virus, right? But at least, the data shows that the most up-to-date vaccines and monovalent, so XBB only without the old part, are at least protecting against the children that this thing's spitting out.
Okay. Everyone's starting to not freak out. I think it'll be too far, but thinking about, I can't have my Christmas taken away from me again. What do we need to know with this fifth wave coming in? What advice can you give out to the public about it? To keep ourselves safe, to keep others around us safe. What should we be doing? Same old, same old?
Yeah, it's the same old, exactly. It's our warmer summer months. Open the windows, ventilate, it's all that, as you say, the same old stuff. The more that we accept that this is not a seasonal virus, and that, it's not a winter flu, and that it could crop up during our summers and make vulnerable people in our families sick during our Christmas holiday season. We just can't forget that. We just can't forget that. And in the same vein, what bothers me the most about this, creeping in of let's not talk about it anymore and it's over. The worst message is vulnerable people literally thinking it's safe now.
Yeah.
So, and that goes for people who are clinically vulnerable, anyone who's at high risk. If you get COVID, dial up those antivirals. Don't think and we hear this all the time because people are sort of thinking, oh, well, maybe I don't even need antivirals because, the pandemic's over. It's that message that it's safe now for some reason. It's not. Keep dialing up those, antivirals, any protection against, the damage that the virus can do is good to get. And, it's good to reach out and see if you're eligible, all the rest of it. Because, it's usually vulnerable only that can get access to Paxlovid, the antivirals. But it's just, we just want to make it clear that just because the emergency response is over, the risks are not. Keep doing all those things. Open the windows, open the doors. Party outside.
Which is why it's a bit weird that we are having a spike coming into summer, because you think this is the time people are opening their doors and they're turning their insides to outside CO2 levels. But it's just, like you say, it can happen at any time. The other thing about Paxlovid, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's that thing called bounce back, isn't there? So some people on Paxlovid, they test negative and then a few weeks later or days later they can test positive again, which is what happened with Joe Biden.
Yeah, and that is common, but it's funny, like when you look at the studies that have tracked the rebound, it can happen without antivirals as well. So, but it is relatively common. Like you can test negative and be fine, and you just get bounced back. What's really going on there is that you're shutting the virus down, but your immune system's not really kicked in enough to kick it out. So as you're coming off your course of antivirals, the virus is like, woohoo, I'm free to let rip again. And that's what tends to happen. So it's more common than first expected, but that's why that's happening. But certainly your immune system will fight better.
I feel like, Anna, we should get you on one night to talk about like puppies and rainbows or something. Because it's like, it's lovely to talk to you. It's not really nice to have you on, but we're only ever talking to you when there's like, oh God, another one of these terrible, what are we going to do? So maybe we'll get you back like on a Sunday night talkback show where we just talk bullshit all night and don't mention the C word at all or something.
Yeah, exactly.
So lovely to see you. And just so people are clear, you've basically rushed back from Christchurch, rushed back from the airport just in time to come and jump on board to say g'day to us. So we really appreciate you being with us again. And it's so good to see you again. And I'm sure we'll talk again super soon. Dr. Anna Brooke.
Awesome. Cool.
Thanks, mate.